I'm ready to call this meeting to order. This is the Board of Supervisors Finance Committee meeting Tuesday, September 18, 2020, 2:30 p.m. Gallery Room, Chatham Community Center, 115 South Main Street, Chatham, Virginia. Roll call, please.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Ingram?
Present.
Mr. Scares?
Here. Do we have any agenda items to be added? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. We have the motion by Mr. Davis, second by Mr. English. Are we doing a roll call on this one?
Hey, Ron.
Hey, do we have any?
Hey,
items?
Mr.
Well, do we have an item?
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, it's popping up on the screen.
It's
a deal.
Kel, you revised it to
All right, go
include
ahead.
the.
Thank you,
It's
vote,
all right.
please. All right. Oh, we're still waiting on Dr. Miller. We approved that anyway, pretty good.
Dr. Miller, for vote, can you give me that verbally? Can I get your vote verbally?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving on to new business, CRF application review approval community development, SRI enterprise, and which Mr. Axtell's gonna give us a brief.
Yes, sir.
So we are requesting money to upgrade our current GIS system. Currently, all the GIS operations in the county are housed in community development under one license on one computer. So this means that we maintain all of the parcel records for the county that you can access online. Because what GIS does is the way for us to collect information, the way for us to analyze information, and then report information back out to staff internally to make decisions. But it also allows us to report information back out to the public. So currently, with our one license that we have, we're not fully able to utilize our GIS and Esri the way that we should be able to utilize it. Esri allows us to increase operational efficiency. If we were to expand what we have now, we could provide dashboards to the staff, to the board, so you could see, you would log on to a website, you'd be able to see any project that was placed on that dashboard, what the status was, funding, finance could keep track of the budget through a dashboard, very quick, easy data analysis could be done that way. Board packets could even be done through Esri. So what it would do, Esri has a tool called Story Maps, and I'm going to show you all this in just a second through what other localities are doing. What the board packets do is they allow the maps to be shown on the screen. So it's very interactive. All of this can be placed online. And so it allows the public to interact too. So what this locality found was that by using Esri Story Maps for their board packets, they had less citizens calling and asking questions because the citizens had information online that was very easy for them to digest, very easy for them to access, and displayed in a way that was very easy for them to understand, and it was also interactive. Data collection. This allows us to collect, Esri has a lot of tools that we can use, so we could take an iPad out, we can do data collection. If the fire department wanted to look at all the fire hydrants in the town, there's an app that's free to us with the subscription. They can take the app out. What they would do is they would build basically a survey on their iPad. They could go in, they could stand over top of where that hydrant was. It would allow them to geocode that hydrant. They could select when they inspected it, condition of the hydrant, and any other information that they thought was relevant into our database. So they could go back and say, get back in the office, they can pull up all this information that was collected and analyze, these are the hydrants that are in poor condition, these are the hydrants that are in great condition, and it would map all of that for them. So they can look at areas that they need to address, how many hydrants they're going to need to make upgrades to in the near future. So it also allows decision making that's data driven. So it helps us when we are looking at funding needs. We have that data that we can back on decisions that we make financially. It also allows enhancement to civic engagement. So there's a public-facing side to this. So everything that we do internally can be presented to the public in a way that's easy for them to digest and understand. Through COVID, I'm going to show you a really great website that the locality did. They took all the COVID information. They have a COVID dashboard. So what that does is it talks about all of the cases that are in their county. It talks about all of the demographics in their county that make them susceptible to COVID or be able to, withstand some tests that are brought about by COVID, such as hospital beds, ICU beds. All of that is displayed to the public. So the public has a great place where they can go and get any information they need. It also pulls GIS information from the Virginia Department of Health and other national agencies that are tracking COVID. So it's one place that their citizens can go and get any information that they need relating to COVID in that locality's response. It also creates a platform for citizens to communicate with the staff. So you can create a complaint database. So there's a form. I'll use community development for example. You notice a building code violation or dilapidated structure. You can go online, you can submit a complaint, you can attach a picture, it's all anonymous, but it geolocates where that structure is. So it's automatically sent to staff, whoever we designate as the person that would receive those. Then we have a firm location, we know exactly where we're going, we know what we're looking for, and we can track internally that it's been addressed, it hasn't been addressed. All this can be uploaded into a dashboard that then you all have access to. It can also have a public-facing side to that so that the public can see these are the complaints that the county has received. This is where the ones that are being addressed. These have not been addressed. So it holds us accountable. And this would be countywide. Community development is not the only ones that use Esri. Our public works department uses Esri. This is how they track all of their infrastructure. They use Esri to know where all their water lines are, where all their sewer lines are, their pump stations. They know conditions. They know when they're installed, when they need, they schedule maintenance, things like that. Commissioner revenue, all their parcel data, that goes into Esri. Parks and Rec can even use Esri. It's a great interactive tool to show where any of our trails are, any of our parks, any of the amenities that are within those parks. So the public, if you're looking for a playground, you can go on a Parks and Rec website, you can pull up an interactive map, it'll show you exactly where the playgrounds are, it'll show you what else is located at that location. So it's a great tool for the public to use. And I'll show you a few websites that kind of highlight some of these things. There we go. Okay, so this is Rockingham County, Virginia, and this is their coronavirus response. So as you can see, they've got all the confirmed cases in Virginia, all the deaths, but they also get into school closing, testing site locators, and all this is, well, that's not working. Should disconnect the doors. relevant information about them, the times they were open, when they were closed, you know, if there was any costs associated with it, et cetera. This is their planning report, so this gives you relevant information about their locality as it relates to COVID, the number of hospital beds, the number of ICU beds, the age of their population, average age of their population, healthcare insurance coverage, things like that. But then it also pulls information from the Virginia Department of Health. So you can see, you know, this is kind of a one-stop shop for all of their residents. They get information from the Virginia Department of Health about hotspots, the number of cases in areas, and all of these are interactive. Social distancing rating, so you can click on each one of those localities like you would on the Virginia Department of Health website. However, this would be on our county page. You can even look at cases by zip code. So you can pull up your zip code, you can see how many cases or active cases there are within that zip code. And then they've just got some other information relating to COVID. This is Franklin County. So with this, they've got voting information. This is a great, Esri is a great tool for voting. It shows you your poll locations. It's very interactive, so it'll show you, you can put districts on here, so you could put in your address and it will automatically show you what district you're located in and where your poll is. You know, this has address request forms, so this is just another tool that's online that allows residents to get services from us without actually having to come into our office. Obviously, staff is always available to help residents and customers whenever they need it, but a lot of times, especially right now, people like to be able to do things online and not have to come to the office. So this is just a tool that makes it more user-friendly and provides better customer service. So if, you know, you were requesting an address, you could fill out this form, it would automatically pinpoint where you're requesting that address be created or the address be changed if you had a discrepancy with your address, and then that would allow us to investigate it, but it would also give us a tool to better track the work that's being done internally. You've also got your parcel and zoning viewer. So we currently have this. This is another service that we pay for. We could do away with that service and go strictly to the Esri online application. So that is a way that we could reduce some costs that we have and create a better service in the process. But this is Franklin County's parcel viewer, and so it's very interactive. But it's very similar to ours. You can see that it shows you the zoning, it pulls up all of the parcel information that are over on the side, which is very similar to what our parcel viewer does now. However, we would just be able to transition that away from the current provider. This is Fort Charles, Missouri. This is their public crime map. So anytime that 911 gets a call, all that information is entered into the 911 database. So what they do is they then create a layer from that database. So every call that they get is then placed on a map. And I'll launch the map. It tells you what type of call that was. And then theirs is really unique because it also allows you to submit information. But anyway, it gives you a point on the map, and then you can pull up any information about that case. So you can see when it was reported, the general area that was reported in, and gives you the address. All this is public information anyway. And then it tells you, so if they're seeking information about that case, you're allowed to submit a tip through their website. So that would send to the sheriff's department anonymously, and all, tie it back to that case. Easy for the sheriff's department to track, but also a great way for the public to be interactive. This is Oak Hill. They do a great, this is the community that uses this for their city council meetings, so they use the story map. I'll just pull up one of their agendas. So this is one of their unfinished business. You can see, it shows you the location they're talking about. This is a demolition, potential demolition of a structure. It shows you where that structure is. All of the documents are attached. So it pulls up all their documents, the inspection report, the demolition report, everything, so that if the public misses a meeting, they still have access to all the information that you get in your packet. And in an interactive way so that they can better visualize where these issues are occurring.
Is this portion produced before or after?
This is before. So this is what, the board also has access to this. So they actually use this during their meetings, and this is how they run their meetings. So that it's easy for you to see where properties are. The map is there, you can see the location of the property, because I know a lot of times, especially zoning cases, it's nice for you to kind of visualize what's around it. So this would be a great tool for, that you would be able to use that. This is Abington. They have, great interactive sites that show all their zoning districts. I have this pulled up already. So this is their zoning map. So what this does is you can click on each individual zoning classification. So you wanted to know what R3 was. You could click on a property on the map that's zoned R3. It pulls up information about that zoning classification, but then it also provides a link to that zoning code section. So it allows the public more knowledge. We receive a lot of calls. People don't know, they know what their property's zoned, but they don't know how to find what that means. So this would be a great interactive tool that the public can find a lot of that information on their own, and then when they have that information, they can call us with specific questions. But if they didn't want to interact with that, they didn't have to. They could call their fingertips. And this is Johns Creek. They are considered kind of one of the best localities that use geofence, probably in the nation. And so this is just an example. This is this is their sidewalk. So you can click on the different segments, and it shows that one's existing, shows you the width, the type, the material. There are some sections. They show future, like this is a trail. So this is a gap, and it shows recommendations to be built. That's the trail, it shows who the owner is, and this is all public facing, so the public has access to that. So whenever they do plan updates, and they go look at when they're gonna install sidewalks, this map gets updated, so the public knows when they're expected to get sidewalks in their area at all times. So these are, we would tailor this to Pittsylvania County and information that is relevant to the citizens of Pittsylvania County. But this is really a way for us to be more transparent, to be held more accountable for receiving complaints and allowing citizens to give us input and be more reactive to that input that they give us. That's all. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from committee members?
I had one. Emily, did you say this would replace or enhance the existing JS?
Yes, greatly.
Yes.
Currently, we have one license. We already have ArcMap, which is through Esri. we have one license for that. And so it's on one computer, one person manages all of the GIS data for the entire county. And what happens is, a lot of times that one staff gets bogged down with one type of data. 911 uses this. All of their response locations are realized through Esri. They're all GIS based. So anytime a station, like an EMS station closes, we have to go in and adjust those boundaries so that when a call comes into 911, the appropriate EMS station is notified. If we don't go in and adjust those boundaries, it's haywire and calls aren't routed where they need to go. So when we have emergencies come up like that, the staff member gets pulled off to work on those projects. With this, we would have unlimited license. So all departments would then manage their own data. 911 can manage their own data, and when they need to, they can make adjustments. They can go in and adjust their own boundaries. They don't need to rely on our one staff member. Commissioner of Revenue and all their parcel updates. That can be all done by the Commissioner of Revenue. Public Works would then have access to manage all of their infrastructure data. And this also comes back to, we get requests for data a lot. So we share our GIS layers, or most of our GIS layers, with the public. You just call and request it, and we share it. This will allow us to do that in a way where the public can go on the website and they can download that data on their own. They don't need to call us and I set up some type of Dropbox to then send that file to them. It would free up, a staff member to be able to work on big projects. Economic development uses GIS a lot. It's a great tool to be able to see kind of clusters of business development, GIS, enterprise zones and things like that. They rely heavily on Esri data and GIS data for their reports. Amending any of the boundaries for those enterprise zones, all of that is done with GIS. So it would allow us to be able to utilize GIS in a way that other localities are already doing, that we just do not have the capability or the ability to have more manpower to utilize it.
Will this be more people friendly?
Yes, very, very much so.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to sound torpid in this thought, but I'm going to have to address several things, and I don't want to sound like the devil's advocate either. I had a particular person call me from Danville, Virginia, who was inquiring about the internet service out of my district because they have a son that's going to school in my district. I still don't understand the nature of that call, but nevertheless, my suspicions still dwarf me as I speak now. But nevertheless, posed a good question. We do not have the internet service in Pittsylvania County as such. And I know that GIS gaps are very prevalent because the work you guys have been doing and beating the bushes and doing a great job in the county. I mean, picking up a lot of delinquent things that have been out of place for quite a while. And my hat's off to you guys doing an excellent job. And I do know that we got problems there. My question is, before I get to the main subject, would there be funds perhaps for implementation for this, for the internet? I'm just saying, okay, we got this, we can get this program, but would they have any extra funds that says, hey, we're going to help you with putting up the internet? I doubt it, but I'm just asking. But the thing is, we don't have a blanket necessarily effect yet with broadband internet in Pittsylvania County as a whole. So my question is, are we getting the cart before the horse? You understand what I'm saying? And then secondly, could we juggle that in the essence of applying for it? Because I'm for it. I'm for this, period. You got me sold because of too many things there in there that you've already implemented. Friendly, as he says, other things that were involved, I agree with it. I think it's a great operation. But my question is, are we going to get the cart before the horse? Can we have the funds? Are the funds there to apply for? Timing? There's some things. Do we need to go on and get this and lock it in and anchor it in? And then when the internet starts to expand, we start getting good reports or whatever. Just throwing those questions up. I'm hoping staff's, you know.
So GIS is a way of aggregating and displaying information. So the information that GIS will be utilizing already exists in our organization. We just have a very difficult time extracting it and giving it to people and showing people. 90% of what we do can be coordinated, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but that can be associated with a node on the map. Whether it's a building permit, a police report, water service, outstanding tax bill, there's a node on the map that jibes with pretty much every piece of data we have. This is how we can extract that information and not only use it for our own purposes, but extract it and gain business intelligence out of it through dashboards. You know, we can pull out, let me think of something bizarre, the number of people that have paid their trash fee, solid waste fee in 24137. You know, we know that. We just don't know how to extract that information on the fly. So GIS is a tool by which we can access information we're already generating. That information is being accessed not just by people in Pittsylvania County, but people all over the state and beyond that are doing business with Pittsylvania County. So when we're recruiting a business like Aero Farms and they're wanting to get information about a potential location, this is the type of tool that they use to access it. So as a separate subject matter, how our people access it, you know, there is still a significant piece of the county without internet access at their home. And we are, through the CARES Act, along with a lot of other things, putting money toward helping with that project, with deploying internet. There's a company, River Street Communications, that has a $33 million grant to put internet in the old People's Mutual Telephone area. Well, that's a 5-year project, minimum 5 years. So there is no silver bullet for internet. It is going to be incremental, and the local government's role in that is going to be to facilitate where possible. And since we have CARES Act funds, it is one of, well, it's a big chunk of where we're putting money is facilitating internet. So I consider them separate issues. Access to the internet versus our access to information. And, you know, of course, anyone will be able to access this information if they don't have internet at home, in our libraries, in front of our schools, and any other public terminal. But this project, I think, is a long time coming. You see our neighbor next door, our smaller neighbor, Franklin County, is doing pretty awesome stuff with it. And I see that it makes interaction by citizens to our government a lot easier and more friendly, if they can get online. I acknowledge that too.
Any other questions? Ms. Farmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Excel, I like it. I'm a fan of everything technology and advancing us to, like you said, not just our competitors, but other localities. I've been on this soapbox of mine for over a year or two now. It's nothing towards you, but a citizen user interface app. Okay, I've been pushing for that. I see a lot of the items here today. I think would be great to have one of that. Like you said, such as walking trail locations, voting polls. I mean, it's just numerous things. So I'd be curious if this board recommends it later, then we approve it later tonight. If we go forward, if you, Mr. Bud, can make sure that this one day can be put towards that app. I know Mr. Bud's not here. Kevin, you could pass that on. Because I would hate for us to get in the future and not have the ability or capabilities to put it in the county app.
And we would have that capability. So what this will do, this is our database. So any apps, other softwares that the county purchases, Esri is very user friendly. So most of these other softwares can tie into the data, the Esri data. Esri works with other software developers, app developers, things like that, to provide the data that app then can display to the public, or allows the platform for the information put into the app to then be displayed back to staff. So all of that would come through our GIS database.
And also as part of our IT assessment we're doing is an analysis of what's texted into that app stage. And we think we already own it. In fact, we're busy trying to find the contract with our service provider. We think we already own the license to make that happen. So we're well on to that.
Okay, good to hear. Thank you.
Mark, you have any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This particular software, is it strictly database driven, so it doesn't have any mechanisms? Like you mentioned earlier that some localities was using it in their meetings. Does it have a part of it that could be an agenda-driven app? So because personally, like Mr. Farmer said about his passion, I'd be very passionate and interested to see something that could change the agenda and open up the avenue for us to use other devices besides just this one iPad. Because it limits us so much in our technology. And I've had this discussion with the administrator. It was probably short-sighted on our part when we didn't have other options available. The second thing is with the data-driven, I found it interesting when you talked a little bit about the sheriff's department. With it being part of 911 and gathering that data, will they be able to retract information so they can, map out crimes for this areas that's occurring, so they can get quick information of what, becoming a repetitive theme in an area? I know they do that now, but, is this going to make it easier for them? Is this going to make their life easier?
It will. So their CAD system and GIS, they talk to each other anyways. So they work very closely with each other. So the information in their CAD can be then brought over into GIS because it's basically, as long as there's a location, that address, that information or data can be tied to any point on a map, whether that be a long lag point or an address or anything, that can be tied to a single point on a map in GIS. So this would allow them to track the types of crimes that are occurring. They could map it, they could see any trends, but you can also start overlaying data. So they would be able to look at, say, the types of violent crime that are happening in an area, the number of calls that animal control is getting in that area, the derelict structures in that area. So you can start overlaying all of this data so that when you want to look at an area that you target for any type of redevelopment or anything like that, you have all the information in one place so you can make a really informed decision that will address all these issues that are causing any problems that that area is seeing. You're not just looking at one piece of information over here and then you're having to pull information from this source. It's all in one place and you can easily map it so that you can see any trends.
The only one thing that you mentioned that kind of maybe set up in wonder was you mentioned that other departments would be able to do some boundary changes. Is that without your approval? Because,
No.
when you just threw that out there about boundary changes, I said, I don't know if we want everybody to have the ability to change the boundaries.
What would happen is they would be responsible for their own data. So this data is technically belongs to various different departments. The infrastructure data belongs to Public Works. So they would have the ability to maintain it. However, we could internally in community development, we could set what these different employees have access to, what they can change. So we would give them access to only the data, to make edits to the data that only applies to them, that they are responsible for. We would still, I'll go back to plat changes, line adjustments for plat. All the plats still come through our office. So what would happen, we would review the plat, staff would sign off. Once it's recorded, it then gets taken to the Commissioner of Revenue's office. And the way it works now is they go in and they make the adjustments in Keystone, and then they send their plats down to community development for us to change and make any line adjustments. That is where there's a lack in data entry. Our website, doesn't match what real estate data, the current real estate data is. So this would help cut down on some of that. It's never going to be up to date entirely, but you may have, it'll get input faster with them being able to maintain that instead of one staff person having to work on that, having to work on 911 boundary adjustments and things like that. It would just streamline the process.
So it just won't, we can never get it to real time.
No. Unless we started doing, and I don't know what this would take, unless we started doing updates ourselves, which I don't think we want to tackle. I feel like that would be very costly. We probably would never have real time, but we could cut down on the amount of time that it was inaccurate.
I've tried to use GIS. I'm ready for a change.
Any other questions? I just have one. Do you foresee any manpower requirements for this, or is each department going to be able to manage this without any, and I guess who's going to administer the whole system? Is that going to be your department or Scott Budd's department? Or how does this all going to interact like 911 if they start putting all the data out there? Are they going to have to be the ones that are inputting that data, or are we going to have to require somebody to come in and do that for them?
So, GIS currently is within community development. So that one staff is in community development. This GIS system, we would still oversee it. We would oversee the implementation of the system, and we would make sure that the data is being maintained accurately and up to our standards. What this does is that it just allows staff, and each staff could identify someone in their department. Esri does provide training as part of this, so we would be able to train staff on how to use the software and how to maintain their data, and then it would allow community development to oversee that data input to make sure that it's all uniform and it's meeting standards. I hope that answers your question. So we could do it with current staff. It wouldn't take additional
But
staff.
there is a paradigm change. I mean,
Yeah.
people inside the department have to be responsible for their data, for the quality of that data, and that's one of the things that, one of the reasons we're doing this IT assessment is because we know a lot of things, we just can't figure out where it is. And so there's going to be a change in behavior, certainly, but we're going to be doing that for a myriad of reasons in our IT responsibilities, and this would just be one of them. But it won't require any staff changes. It will require changes in effort.
Well, we better get moving. We're running out of time.
I just want to know, how much training, and is it adequate or is it negotiable so that we're sure we get plenty of training for this, get our departments to the level they need to be?
So there is training, there's training in the actual upfront cost. They will do additional training if that's something that we wanted to include. However, Esri is really good about putting free trainings online. So we get access to a lot of online trainings as part of our subscription fee that we would not need to pay extra for. That's online, we get login. Staff would have the ability to log in, take trainings online. If we wanted any face-to-face training, then that would be an additional charge. But they do provide some of that up front when they're setting all that up for us.
The staff looked at that to see if the face-to-face training is adequate to get the department up to date, and if not, is that a negotiable item right now?
You know, I'm sitting here thinking the same thing, Mr. Warren. I don't think well, my instinct is we're going to need more than anything. One of the things going through my head right now is a owner or coordinator on a local level that has the ability to go between departments and help. And I don't know that we have that today. We do have some staff changes taking place right now that we may be able to adjust some job descriptions in that regard as we get to rehire. I can't answer that question, but I'm skeptical that we might need more than is provided. And if that's the case, we'll be coming back to you.
And And that's something that we could get from our Brad Treasury. We could get a detailed list of training and then what any additional training would cost.
I'll say this, we'll make sure that Emily and the executive team sit and walk through the entire training program before we commit to the project.
Trying to move this along, what's the pleasure of the committee?
I'll make a motion that we adopt this item right here.
We have a motion by Mr. Davis, do we have a second?
Second.
A second, Ms. Dean. All right, go ahead. Any further comments from the committee? Anything from the board members?
I would say she's done a wonderful job presenting that.
Okay. All right, go ahead and cast your votes, please. All right, approved. Okay, let's move on quickly to 5B, CRF application review approval, in-car computers for sheriff's vehicles.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tommy Nicholson is here on the sheriff's behalf to present this item that that has been recommended for approval for in-car computers in the deputy's vehicles.
Good morning, Chairman and board members. Pleasure to be here this afternoon. What we're proposing to do is put a computer in each one of the sheriff's office patrol cars and a wireless air link that will securely communicate back to our database in Chatham. And what this will do, it will keep the officers in their assigned areas and keep them from having to run back and forth to Chatham to do the reports. As you know, this is the largest county in Virginia, and it takes a while for them to answer a call, have to come to Chatham and do the report. We had a real problem during the peak of the coronavirus about trying to keep the computers clean in the deputy's room so they wouldn't have to worry about being exposed to the virus. Each car will have its own laptop in it, and we propose to go with the Panasonic Toughbook. We've done a lot of research on the different types of computers, and yes, you can find a cheaper computer, but you can't find a computer that will hold up to the abuse it will get just riding in a car 12 hours a day, the heat, the humidity, and the bouncing around in the cars. Every police department that I've talked to and sales rep for this equipment all suggested the Panasonic Toughbook on account of that. They said you may have to spend a little bit up front to get the Toughbook, but you'll save it in the long run because of the other computers, the hinges break on it. Just imagine how many times that opened and closed in the daytime, and the officers will be able to get live information in their patrol cars. And that's our biggest goal, is to try to keep the officers in the area to slow down on response time when somebody calls in and needs us.
All right, do we have any questions from committee members?
I will tell the committee that I went over and talked to the sheriff and Colonel Nicholson last week, and browbeat them into, come on, can't we do this for cheaper? And they did their homework. The guys, they did got a lot of quotes. I think what they've given us is the best program available, and I support it.
Well, certainly, I appreciate that we're upgrading to the 21st century with getting these computers. I know it's going to help out the veterans who are out there on the road all day, so I'm really excited. Get one out there in the comments or Mr. Martin?
Mr. Chairman, I'm in favor of this. I'm not on the committee, but I agree. Just to me, saving the time, fuel costs, everything substantial that goes along with what you guys are trying to get done with these computers. I'm for it. Again, this is your department, so I'm not going to overstep, but I would be curious if you and Sheriff can help direct the deputies when they're deciding where to do their reporting. If they can stop in a school, the high traffic areas, they can just be there to help that extra presence, even though they're in the parking lot filling out their report. To me, that's a big deal to have the police that close about it. Those, you guys know the spots, what I'm trying to say. I just think that'd be a great, another service for our citizens as well.
That's a good point, Mr. Foreman, that's absolutely what they would be doing, because they would be able to stop wherever they wanted to and do the reports, and calls, be able to be more visible. As most of y'all know, we've got a program that started up in October. We're sending 10 deputies to the EMT class, put on by the Dental Lifesaver Group. And that's another reason we want to keep them in the areas, because once we get that through, and I think they graduate the second month of March, I think it is, they'll be able to help out with the, running some 911 calls or some emergency calls for service if they're not tied up on criminal work. So that's another thing we're very proud that we're going to implement after the first of the year.
It's a pleasure of the committee.
I'd like to make that motion.
All right, Ms. Ingrid, we got a motion from Ms. Ingrid.
Second.
Second, Mr. Davis.
I would like to make some comment real quickly. I do appreciate the good thinking and cross-training from you guys at the time. Good presentation, thank you. You guys deserve it.
All right, go ahead and cast your votes, please.
Thank y'all very much.
Tommy, I was gonna say, I've been there, so I appreciate this very much, and, maybe out of those comments, you might get yourself a pie.
Thank you.
Won't need a cake, man.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, motion approved. Let's move on to 5C, dam rehabilitation, grants financial non-liability confirmation, Pittsylvania County Soil and Water Conservation District. And that will be Mr. Hickson, please.
Let's see, at your last meeting, you approved Mr. Smithman to sign 4 grants on the Cherry Stone Dam project. And we're partners with the Soil and Water Conservation District and with the Chatham, before the Soil and Water Conservation Board agrees to sign those documents, go some kind of assurance from the county. We won't go back and ask them to share in the match of the funds. As you know, basically they have no funds, so they're asking for, some type of insurance risk board is not going to ask them to share those costs. And they can easily be done by, a letter from Mr. Smith or, a board resolution.
Any questions from committee members?
I would suggest it's simple enough that the finance committee consent to county administrator providing the requested letter to the Soil and Water Conservation District.
And if we move forward, we're gonna have to decide what our share is between Pittsylvania County and the town of Chatham. We have not done that yet, so that's something we'll have to ask the board, to consider in the degree there in the future.
That's fine.
So just found out a lot of info on this other than what you just said. But Dayton, and y'all look to you for counsel, what is your, I agree, staff already said a recommendation, but from a legal standpoint, where do you stand?
As far as what type of recommendation y'all do, I think it's totally sufficient to just authorize Mr. Smith to write a letter. It says, this was discussed at this meeting and we hereby agree that you're not gonna have to secure this. 'Cause it is a 3-headed agreement, but Soil and Water Conservation, they have no budget. So it's really, we've got 2/3 of the burden likely to one village in town. So I think that would, allay any of their fears in talking to them.
I just have one question. Is there any possibility that with everything going on legislatively and all that good stuff, that any of the funding that could come, whether it be federally or statewide, that they would flow it through the water conservation? So that, I'm just saying, I'd hate for them to get some money and we said, we don't want your money, kind of deal.
We'll put some language in that letter that addresses that situation. If you're given money, we of course.
If you get grant money, we will.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah. I think we're very easy. Put that in mind.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
That's all right. All right, what's the pleasure?
I make a motion that we authorize the county administrator to notify Pittsylvania County Soil and Water Conservation District that they will not be required to provide funds for the dam rehabilitation project.
Motion by Mr. England, do we have a second? Second. Second. Did I say Mr. England? Mr. Davis? Second by Mr. England, sorry. Any other comments? All right, go ahead and cast your vote, please. All right, it was approved 4-4. Okay, we move on to matters from committee members. Do we have any committee members with any matters to bring? Seeing none, I'll adjourn.